Kevin, also, as we get into the warmer seasons of the year, people get back out and about. They want to tend to their yards, beautify their space, enjoy the outdoors and all of its great elements, especially here in Greater West Bloomfield, where we value our environment so heavily. But to do so, oftentimes the best action you can take is to support the land with plants it is regularly used to, or native plants. Joining us is an expert on this topic who recently wrote a brand new book with 50 different native plants in it, and that is Sally Wenczel. She is the author of Native Plants of Great Lakes Region 50, Hand-Sketched Wildflowers, Pollinators, and More with us on the Splash Live. Sally, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Tyler, so much for having me. I wouldn't call myself an expert, but that was very nice of you to say that. I am a
Hey,
student of my.
in comparison to yours, truly, everybody is an expert, and you certainly are very well versed in this subject matter and an advocate for our local environment. So let's start from the start, because native plants, we hear a lot about this every year, especially as we get into the spring and people are getting ready to start gardening or start a garden altogether. And so many people talk about the importance of including native plants in your yards or in your gardens. But why is that important, especially here in the Greater West Bloomfield area where we have so much wildlife and so many wetlands?
Oh, yeah. So that is actually, I have a list included right in the very front of the book. Why are native plants so important? Because it was really important to me not just to have the artwork as a teaching tool for kids to adults. I mean, it's really an all range, all ages coloring book. But why are they so important and where can you get them? That information is also in here. So, one of the most important things is that they've been here for thousands of years, sometimes tens of thousands of years, and they're they've co-evolved with the animals and the wildlife that have also been here for that long. So they're codependent on each other. So really, it's the base of the food chain. That's one point. Another is that they have really, really deep root systems. So some of these native plants, and especially the grasses, they can go down like 15 to 20 feet. It sounds outrageous, but it's true. So what they're doing is these deep root systems are really holding that earth in place, and it acts as a erosion prevention. So along shorelines, anywhere where there's slopes, to plant native plants is really an act of preventing erosion. And in doing so, we're actually keeping our watershed healthy because all the nutrient runoff is reduced. Another point, the if you're planting native plants, you don't have to douse them with fertilizers and herbicides and water. A lot of them are drought tolerant. So by reducing the chemical input in our environment, we're also protecting the pollinators and the watershed and our own health as well.
And with this being such an important topic, and there's so much detail that goes into learning about native plants to the state of Michigan, to Oakland County, to the Greater West Bloomfield area, and so there's so much detail to go into on this subject matter. How did that influence you as you were putting together this book, and ultimately when you put together the color by number with these 50 hand-sketched pictures? Why that format to teach people about this subject matter?
Well, you could just put some plants in a book and expect people to know what they look like. They'd be doing a lot of Googling on their phone to say, okay, what color is this gentian or butterfly milkweed? So the color by number really helps to teach and get you to really look closer and examine. And I guess for me, when I'm doing illustrating for other books that I've done, once I draw something, it's really etched into my brain. It's really cemented in there, and I don't ever forget it. And then I start seeing it out in the wild, and then once you see it, you just can't unsee it. It's, oh, there it is, and it's kind of everywhere. So really being able to identify the specific characteristics and the colors is important. It's an important teaching tool. And excuse me, the title of I wanted to go beyond just Michigan because really, I have some props here I want to show you. So the Great Lakes region, really, it's any of the provinces or states that touch. I can see that touch a Great Lake. But then looking closer, the Great Lakes Basin. So here's a map too, if you can see that.
Yeah.
So that's all the drainage. All of that land is the watershed into the Great Lakes. So looking a little closer, all of those, the highlighted areas, all that stuff is draining into our water bodies. So the Great Lakes region is, I tell the kids when I present in classes and I do book readings that Michigan is right in the middle. We're like the high five. We're the team captain of the Great Lakes region. And so we have a lot of responsibility here to really set an example.
And we set a great example here in the greater West Bloomfield community, too, with our focus from really each of our communities in West Bloomfield Township, in Keiko Harbor, and Sylvan Lake, and Orchard Lake, and throughout the county on focusing on environmental activism and making sure that we are being supportive of our environment while being supportive of each other and our properties and our own way of manifesting how we want to live in our communities. And so as you put this book together, you did so with hand-sketched illustrations. So what sort of challenges did you face in that process, and what aspects of native plant life and its relationship with our pollinators, too, did you want to capture through these images?
So how did the process? Wow. I love rainy, dark days because it really makes me sit down and stay inside and focus. Otherwise, I want to be out playing like everybody else when the sun's out. But it takes a lot of, I guess, self discipline to make yourself do something like this when you're your own boss. You have to set your schedule, give yourself kind of a deadline. My deadline was get it done before the first day of spring, which thankfully I did. Um, so yeah, what was your follow up question? Sorry, I go off on these tangents. I've got all these seeds sitting in front of me and things I want to talk about. But yeah, I'll print out pictures of specific pollinators, like this one right here. This is a white line sphinx moth. So I wanted to know specifically. I had a picture, and I have a drawing in here of an evening primrose, and I thought, okay, I need to find what specific pollinator pollinates and lays its eggs on evening primrose. And I found this beautiful white line sphinx moth. And then I looked at the picture like, man, that's going to be really tough to draw, but I got to put it in there to show the relationship. There's several others. Obviously, I think a lot of people know about milkweed and the relationship with the monarch butterfly. So that was another one that I plugged in to show that delicate relationship, that careful balance, how the plants, the host plants are there for these pollinators that depend on them. And yeah, if you look in what else is in there, the metallic green sweat bee, it loves asters and aster family plants that have these wide open sunflower kind of faces. So yeah, it was fun to match. But I also got some advice from Valerie Mullaney. I want to give her a shout out. She's my ecology consultant who I met through North Oakland Wild Ones, which is another local. There's some West Bloomfield members of North Oakland Wild Ones, and they are great organization. They do a native plant sale. And I met her doing a book reading there, and she was very vocal during one of my presentations. And I thought, man, she knows a lot. This is a wise person who I need to get her information. And I'm so glad we stayed in touch because she helped me edit this book and plug in a few more pollinators that I wouldn't have otherwise known.
And Sally, the book is Native Plants of the Great Lakes Region, 50 Hand-Sketched Wildflowers, Pollinators, and More. You can find it on Amazon and other platforms as well. Amazon's the primary place to go if you want to take a look at this book and learn even more. And Sally, your book provides tips also for readers that want to incorporate native plants into their yards. And so as we wrap things up, what insight can you provide on how people can explore what are the right native plants for their yards, for what their goals are in their yard or in their garden, and how they can incorporate these native plants to make a more robust system in their space?
Yeah, so it was really important to me to put in very specific habitat descriptions with each page. So if you'll see like fox sedge, I put in here on the opposite side, you'll see there's habitat descriptions. Sorry, just shoving stuff in your face here. Full sun or part shade, wet soil of shores, river and stream margins, ditches, meadows, and clearings. So by giving those habitat descriptions, you can kind of look at your own yard and see where is that plant going to be suited. Also, if you do go to these, a lot of them are happening right in May coming up. So native plant sales. I know Friends of the Rouge has theirs coming up, Wild Type Nursery. I'm going to just plug a few of these that I know are happening. WB Parks has one coming up in May, and they will give you, they have really knowledgeable, I would call them experts, that are selling these plants that can help you decide about your landscaping and should this go in the shade, should this go in the sun. Really, you don't have to go all prairifying your whole property and making it all wild. Like even just 10 square feet, 5 square feet of a native plant little niche nook in your garden is so beneficial because, and then you leave the plants. I want to show you this. This is a purple coneflower seed head. The golden finches, they go after this like crazy when all the food is gone, and these are still sticking up in the fall and the early spring. And this is a bird feeder right here. Same with black-eyed Susan and blue vervain, all of these seeds. So they're multiplying. You plant these perennial native plants once and they just keep on producing. They'll fill in and you'll be digging up plants and seeds to give to your neighbors. You have so many after a couple of seasons.
Yeah, there's so much to learn about these different plants and the ways that they can impact your yard and our local ecosystems here in Greater West Bloomfield, with such variety between wetlands and woodlands and just brush also throughout our community. There's so many different ways that you can make an impact right in your own home. Sally, not only is this your second book, you've written this one about native plants, you've previously written one about building a rain garden. Why are these subjects important to you as an author, and why choose this medium to ultimately tell these stories and to provide this information that you're so passionate about to the public?
Well, when I moved out to West Bloomfield from Ferndale, I was looking for nature and I found it. But I live on a very small lake, and who knew that it would have pollution problems and algae bloom problems? And, I found out and right away joined the HOA, got involved, and learned as much as I could about natural shorelines and natural ways to keep water healthy. And it's just had this ripple effect. I just gave a book talk up in my hometown of Mount Pleasant to the Mount Pleasant Garden Club. And usually when I ask, does anyone in the room have a rain garden? At least one person raises their hand, but nobody raised their hand. And I thought, wow, that Chippewa River up there that I grew up swimming in needs more rain gardens. So if we can, strike a vein in the community to get this rain garden revolution, I like to call it sometimes, going in different places to help clean the watershed. I think that's beneficial for everybody. But yeah, it really started with living on this small lake. It's about 12 acres, and learning with my community, with some other members of the neighborhood association, how do we solve this problem of cleaning water that's in such a densely populated urban area. It's not like a forest lake up in the UP. This is like this lake is taking a beating, and the more things that we can do, like rain gardens, natural shorelines, native plantings, are all going to be steps to healing these water bodies.
Yeah, these things don't necessarily resolve the problem, but they help to take those steps forward that over time do help to alleviate these issues and return our waterways and our other wetlands and woodlands back to where they should be in good health. Sally, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.